All doing well wherever you are. My name is Hussein Mashaykhi and I want to welcome you to my lighting workshop. Together in this workshop, we're going to learn how to light different types of rooms and spaces. We're going to learn how to light rooms with small windows, with bigger windows, and also without windows. So regardless of the sources of light that we have at our disposal, we're going to learn how to light different scenes. Now, the first thing that we need to do before we choose our render engine, whether it's Corona or V-Ray, we need to select a certain lighting theme for our scene. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, let me explain what I mean by choosing a theme for our lighting or categorizing our scene in terms of lighting. So basically, let's say we have this room, okay? So our main source of light lies outside, it's the sky. So it's not direct sunlight because we don't have sharp shadows here. So basically it's just the skylight. And we don't have any inside lighting at all. We don't have any ceiling lights that are turned on and no decorative lights that are affecting the scene. So it's just basically sunlight, and this is one theme, one variation. If the decorative lights or the ceiling lights were turned on, that would be another theme or another variation. Okay, so these two different variations require different principles and different methods when we are trying to light those different scenes. Now let's go to another image. Okay, with the image on the left, we still have the skylight lighting up our scene, but we also have some kind of direct sunlight that is giving us a slightly sharper shadows on the floor, and that is the third variation of our lighting theme. So we've talked about three so far, and these are not just any three. These are the three most frequently lighting themes that we're going to be dealing with in our projects. Now let's go through some more examples together and determine what type of lighting themes each require. Now if you look at these three images, now they'll have one thing in common, and that is that the main source of light for all three is coming from the outside. It's basically the skylight. We don't have that much of a direct sunlight that is causing any types of sharp shadows anywhere, and it looks as though we have some kind of cloudy weather, hence the soft shadows that we have here. By the way, we do have a couple of decorative lights turned on in the other images, but they don't really affect the lighting that much. Okay, so let's take a look at these two images. Now in these two images we have some kind of sharp shadows, so it's basically another variation where we have direct sunlight coming outside. So you can just compare the differences to the previous three images that we have. Here all the shadows are kind of like soft and spread out, and these soft shadows are easily noticeable in all three images that we have here. Okay, so this is our first variation, with the skylight being the main source of light, and the ceiling lights that we have are all turned off. Okay, so this is what makes this certain scenario our first variation or theme. Now we have some decorative lights, but they don't really light up the whole space. They just light up a very small area, so that's why we disregard them in this variation. Alright, so let's see some more images from this variation or theme. Again, the skylight or the light that is coming from the outside is the main source of light, and it's lighting up the whole space, and we don't have any kind of direct sunlight that is giving us sharp shadows. Okay, all the shadows are very spread out and very blurred and not sharp at all. So all the light that we have here is coming through the windows, and that is just lighting up the whole space. Okay, so let's see some more examples. Alright, in this new set of examples, these four images, it's basically the same theme. The first variation where we have the skylight as the main source of light. The sky is kind of clear. We don't have that much of a direct sunlight here. The shadows are kind of like mellow and spread out, and we have some more images. Now again, more of the same, the first variation, and we do have some decorative lights here that have been turned on, but like I said before, it's not as though they are affecting the lighting that much. Let's check out these three. Again, the same concept, the same theme. Okay, the light is coming from the outside. If you look at the shadows, they are all in one direction, and they are very spread out, and they are very soft. okay? And our scene is kind of less lively than what we would have with some sunlight, but again, very attractive nevertheless. So let's just recap the first theme or the first variation. The light is coming through the windows from the outside, but we don't have any direct sunlight that is giving us sharp shadows. Okay, so that's just the first theme. Now let's move on to the second theme or variation, and that is when we have a skylight that is coming from the outside through the windows mostly, but we also have some kind of ceiling lights that are contributing to the whole lighting of the scene. So this is our second variation, and it's a very common one, like what we have in real life a lot of times. Right now, as I'm recording these videos for you, I'm sitting in a room. The room has one window, and since the sky is cloudy, I have turned on some lights. So imagine the room that I'm sitting in right now for a second. So as I said, it's a 5-in-3 room, and on one side of it I have one window, but it's a very big one. It's roughly 2.5 in 3 meters, so it basically covers the whole wall that is placed on, and a lot of light is coming through that window. But since the sky is not clear at all and the weather is very cloudy, the light that is coming inside is not that bright, and it has made the whole atmosphere a little bit depressing, and that is why I have turned on some ceiling lights. And considering the time of the day and the amount of light that is coming inside, if the sky was clear and it was not cloudy, I would not have needed to turn on some artificial lights. Okay, so that's the whole concept behind the second variation or theme. Alright, let's take a look at these renders. They belong to a very prominent Turkish 3D artist called Celeros. We have some kind of light that is coming from this side, from the windows, but we do have some kind of ceiling lights turned on as well. And this particular scenario or variation is one where this artist excels at, and we do have a couple of more renders from their works, and we're gonna see them as well. But basically, when we have some kind of light coming from the outside and we still use artificial lights inside, we are dealing with the second variation or theme that we talked about. Now take a look at these renders. The light is coming from the outside, but we still have some kind of decorative lights and ceiling lights that have been turned on, and we have achieved a level of contrast that has made these renders very attractive and very gorgeous. Alright, let's check out a couple of more renders from Celeros. And in this particular scenario, we again have the skylight or the light coming from the outside, and that source of light is basically our main source of light that is lighting up the whole scene. The shadows are very soft and spread out, and a lot of 3D artists stick to these two first variations that we've talked about so far. So basically, with the main source of light being outside, the skylight shining through the windows, and then some decorative or ceiling lights either turned on or off. So these two variations are very popular among a lot of professional 3D artists. In this render, we have the HDRI image lighting up our scene, and in this render, we do have some decorative lights that have been turned on, but if you look at the shadows, they don't affect the shadows that much, so they provide a very mellow and soft light for this area. Now I've seen people use a very intense source of light above dinner tables, but that's not something that I recommend. If you look at the ceiling lights here as well, they mainly serve a decorative purpose. Now let's take a look at two more renders from Celeros. Again, very professional, very beautiful renders, and interestingly they have used the same HDRI image that they used before in these renders. Okay, so basically it's the same HDRI image, and I think it's from a parking or something if I'm not mistaken. So they have used the same HDRI image to light up this scene as well. And by the way, don't worry about HDRI images, we'll talk about them in detail and I'll provide some for you. So again, the light that is coming from the outside is responsible for most of the lighting for this scene, and we have some decorative lights that have provided a nice contrast for our render. And the idea here is that the decorative lights and the artificial lights that we use in our renders don't need to be intense, and our main source of light should come through the windows. Okay, let's check out a couple of more renders, I think from the same scene, yes, but from a different angle. Again, we have the beautiful contrast, we have the decorative light that is lighting up the table, but the prominent lighting factor is the light that is coming from the outside. And contrast is key to a lot of our renders. And basically, when I say contrast, I mean the border between the light and the dark areas of our image is very clear. So for example, take a look at the curtain that we have here, the black curtain and the white wall. If the curtain was gray, we would not have that much of a contrast. But since they are opposites and the border is clear, we have a nice contrast. So we talked about the two variations where the light is either coming from the outside and we have no artificial lights, and when the light is coming from the outside, but we do have some artificial lights as well. Now we have a third variation, and in this one we have some sunlight that is coming from the outside and is lighting up our scene. Now right off the bat, I gotta tell you, this theme or variation is not as popular as the previous two and is not widely used. So usually we're not going to encounter a lot of scenarios where we need to use this theme, but we're going to learn this anyway, because there are certain scenarios where we need to apply this theme. So basically the difference that this theme has with the previous two is that we have some direct sunlight on top of the light that is coming from the outside, and we have to demonstrate the impact of that sunlight that is coming from the outside accurately. We usually do that with the help of our shadows. So shadows are very important to us in this theme. Let's take a look at a couple of more examples. So take a look at the shadows here underneath the chairs, okay, and here as well. And the shadows are a lot sharper and they are easier to make out. So overall we are dealing with a more lively atmosphere, and it's a matter of preference really. So maybe this is a certain scenario that you really like to have in a lot of your work. So we do have the skylight lighting up this space, but we do have direct sunlight on top of it as well. Let's check out another render. And let me tell you something with this render. Usually when we are dealing with renders from this lighting theme or variation, we rarely use any halogenic lights or artificial lights in this scene. So we may have a couple of decorative lights like these side lamps here, but we rarely use any ceiling lights for our scene unless the space is really vast and we absolutely have to. Alright, let's check out a couple of more images. So in this one, all these lights are turned off and we have the sunlight very visible. So it's easily the third variation that we talked about. And let's see, in this one on the left, we have again the sunlight and also the sharper shadows here. So again, that variation. And now that we are familiar enough with the three variations that I talked about, okay, it's time to check out a couple of renders and determine which one's which. Okay, so you do it with me. This one, so we have the skylight lighting up the whole scene. We have no sunlight, it's kind of foggy, and all the interior lights are turned off. So it's the first variation. Remember, if we have the skylight only without any decorative lights, it's the first variation. If we have some decorative lights turned on, it's the second variation. And if we have the sunlight, it would be the third variation. This one is clearly the first variation or the first theme that we talked about. What about this one? Again, the first theme, because we have no sunlight, we have no decorative lights, they are all turned off, and it makes it the first variation or theme that we talked about. The scene is being lit up by the skylight, and shadows are kind of soft but dark, because when the sky is not that clear and it's foggy, it will give us a darker tone for shadows, but it's still soft. So whenever you had a darker tone for your shadows, it's probably because the sky is a little foggy. Okay, so what about this one on the left? Again, the first variation, we probably have a big window here and the skylight is lighting up the scene, no decorative lights turned on and no sunlight. What about this one? Kind of the same thing. Big windows, the skylight is lighting up the whole scene, not that much of a sunlight and no decorative lights. How about this one? Okay, now we're dealing with the second variation, because if we have the skylight, we have some light coming in, but we also have some decorative lights that are very visible and are kind of like lighting the scene also. So now we are probably dealing with later in the day, like afternoon or maybe night. And if you're trying to spice up your renders, please don't use like a background night city and stuff like that, because that would just be too cliche for today's standards. And try to use minimal colors like this one, and I'll talk about that more in detail in the material workshop, but just keep that in mind. Try to be minimal with your colors and don't use the night background cliche. Okay, so let me just show you a couple of more images. All right, so now we have a good base or good familiarity with the three variations or themes. And from now on, whenever we are trying to do the lighting for a scene, we should determine first which theme or variation that scene requires. Okay, so we should not haphazardly go inside that scene and just try to do any sort of lighting that we think it should have. We should determine the theme first and then make all the necessary choices based on that initial decision or based on that theme that we have selected first. Okay, so keep that in mind. And something else I should mention is that you should have a central theme or a niche dominate your Instagram page or your portfolio. Okay, so if you probably were to check out the creator of these renders Instagram, all of their renders would probably look like this. They would use the same colors for all their renders, so they would have like a certain color palette that they would stick to. So go to Google and search for minimal color palette, and you get the idea. Okay, so I suggest you do the same thing. So have a central theme for your work and stick to a minimal color palette. Okay, these are awesome. So these are a personal favorite of mine. You can just select any 4 or 5 colors out of this and use them dominantly in your renders. Okay, so it's a matter of preference, but still I think the minimal color palette has been dominating the render scene for some time now. Okay, so these colors, for example, are really good. Okay, I personally use these a lot. And let me show you another one. These 4 are again a favorite of mine for interior scenes. So you could do the same thing. You could easily search for, let's say, minimal interior even. Okay, and let's not put the color in there. Let's just search for minimal interior, and you would get a lot of renders, and you can just take a look at these renders and get inspiration and check out the lighting and also the colors. Okay, so again, you can see the same colors in all of these renders. So let us evaluate a couple of these renders together based on the things that we've learned so far. So this is not a good render. Why? Because we have this big window here. We have all this light that is coming inside, but it's still inside is a little dark. Okay, so it's weird. It's kind of like paradoxical even, because the window is kind of like white almost. So we have so much light, but it hasn't even been able to completely light up the right side of the render. Okay, so this one is an accurate one. We have big windows, we have a lot of light, and the whole scene is being lit up properly. So it's a very bright looking scene, and we have no decorative lights working because they are not needed. Again, this one is also a good one, accurate. We have a big window here, and I probably bet that we have another big window somewhere else or on the other side of the render. Let me just check out if we have other images from the same scene. So I'm talking about this window, and we probably have another one somewhere else inside the scene. Let me just check out to see if we have that, because it's too bright. Right, so we have another window there, like I said, and we don't need to turn on any lights because the room is being properly lit, and the skylight is doing a good job. So we don't really need to have any decorative lights or ceiling lights, at least not during this time of the day. Okay, let's check out a couple more. This one is also good. The skylight is doing a good job for the lighting, and again, big window, lots of light coming inside, and everything looks natural. And you need to do the same thing. You need to train your eye by looking at a lot of renders and also looking at real life. You know, take inspiration from the lighting that we have inside our own rooms. In this room, we don't have any use for ceiling lights yet. If it was darker in the background, maybe we would add one. All right, so again, same concept, lots of light coming inside, and basically the windows are doing most of the lighting work for us in these situations, and that's what makes them very important. Okay, in a lot of scenarios, we should just deal with the windows and accurately portray how they let in the light that is coming from the outside. Again, here you can see that the skylight is just doing all the lighting work. We have some shadows, we have nice angles, they are really soft, the shadows, and that's what our brain does. It looks at the angle of these shadows and also how bright the whole space is, and it determines if we have one or multiple windows, even if they're not in a clear sight. And in this example, we have a lot of skylight coming inside, but since it's foggy, the shadows are really soft and spread out. We have no lines for the shadows, and that's the point. You gotta have accurate looking shadows. Let me just check out a couple of these websites to see if we have more examples here that I can show you. Let's see. Okay, this one. Again, a lot of skylight coming inside from this one window, and that silent lamp being turned on is not doing anything really. The whole lighting is done by the windows, or the window that we have here. Alright, so let's check out this one. Let's take a closer look at this one actually. So if you look at this right side of this plant holder, this vase that we have here, it's a lot brighter than the left side because it's receiving light from the windows, okay? And that's how accurate lighting works. It receives light from this side, and that's why it's almost white. Okay, it's brownish, but that side is just brighter than the left side. And we can see the same thing with the wooden part of this chair here. Okay, so if you look at the upper part of the hands of the chair, it's almost white again. And we know the color is not white, but because it has been receiving light from the windows, it's a lot brighter that it kind of resembles white. And again, accurate lighting, and our brain expects this. And if it sees a render where these lighting rules are not observed, it quickly notices that. Okay, so let me do something inside Photoshop for you to get you what I mean. I'm going to mess up with this picture or image here. I'm gonna do something unnatural with it. So let me just quickly try to use a white color for the darker part of this plant holder, like this. Okay, and even here. So I'm trying to do some improper lighting right now. Let me just do an overlay. Okay, so I'm gonna add an overlay so that doesn't mess up my original image. So I have to do a couple of Control Z's to get back to my original image, add the overlay layer, and do everything there. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of make the left side, which is supposed to be darker, lighter on purpose. Let's do the same thing with this chair here, the arms. I'm gonna brighten up the wrong side in terms of lighting. Okay, so let me just change the opacity to. This is not supposed to happen in real life, and you'll see in a couple of seconds after I'm done with this how unnatural it looks and how fast your brain reacts to that. Even if you knew this was an actual chair, it was an accurate image. See how unnatural and unfitting this chair is, and it's just because of the lighting, because our brain is very good with this. It quickly notices that the lighting is done wrong. There's something wrong with this image. Okay, these parts that are kind of like brightened up and lighter in tone are not supposed to be that light, because they are not receiving any light from the windows directly. All right, they're supposed to be darker in tone, and that was the idea. Okay, so if you do something weird with the lighting, it would just stand out really quickly and it would just mess up your render. Okay, so we have to have proper lighting. That's how important that is. Now let me just do the opposite and try to improve this image somehow. I'm gonna start by making the left side of this plant holder darker, okay, because it's not receiving any direct light. Alright, so let me just do the same thing with the arms of the chair, the wooden parts of the chair that are not receiving any direct light. I'm trying to give them a darker tone, and you'll see in a second the differences that we have this time. Okay, so just bear with me. Let's see, even this part. Okay, and we can just do the same thing here. All right, and up there. Okay, Now we have more contrast. Let's just do this too. I forgot about this part. Okay, see how much more it stands out? I can even do the back, the whole chair. And now with just this overlay and making these sides darker, we have a lot more contrast and our image looks a lot more attractive. Okay, let me just show you really quickly. I'm going to make this upper part brighter because it's receiving light. Let me just change the opacity before I do that. Okay, this is good. So this is some post-production stuff, but you get the idea. Now if we were to compare, because we have a nicer contrast, more contrast, our render looks a lot more attractive. And right now we just did the chair and the plant holder. If we were to just do the same concept, do the same thing for all the other objects inside this room, our whole render will become more harmonious and better. So I'm going to take care of this object as well. See, this is what I mean. Okay, let's just take care of this part as well for the plant. Make it darker. The left side would be darker than the right side, and it helps with the contrast. And now if you were to compare the two renders before and after, you can see in the second one we clearly see and feel the light coming in, affecting everything. Okay, and that's what we ultimately want with our lighting. We gotta have proper lighting, we gotta take care of the contrast, and everything starts out with selecting or recognizing the theme that scene requires. Okay, so that's the most important decision that we need to make. I cannot emphasize this enough. Alright, that's the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. In the next couple of videos, we're going to learn about the different types of lights that we have inside V-Ray and how to use them correctly with our selected theme. I'll see you there.